على عهدي على ديني على أرض تلاقيني.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome to our first medical symposium at Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa. We are super excited tonight to have three brilliant speakers. And despite the tragedy and the catastrophe unfolding around us, it is an opportunity to try and do something and work through what's going on. So this is really what tonight is about. I hope you leave feeling inspired, and I hope you leave feeling positive, because we all know the stats, we all know what's happening, we've all seen the videos, and I think it's important that we work through it. Okay. My name is Samah El-Boraei. I am a pediatrician, and I am part of Healthcare Workers for Palestine, South Africa, and I'm also Egyptian, South African, and also a descendant of Palestinians. My dad, who's sitting in the front here, will be very embarrassed now, is Egyptian Palestinian. I think this cause has been very close to all our hearts, and close to my hearts, especially, I think, with my grandmother being expelled and her family being expelled in the first Nakba of 48. So I really appreciate everyone coming out, really appreciate everyone's support through this time. And I think we're gonna just get started and introduce everybody. Thanks for coming, guys, really appreciate it. So the setting is very informal. Okay, we're gonna have basically discussions and then a section for question and answers right at the end. So maybe jot down your questions and then right at the end we can get to them. All right, so just to introduce the panel. So we've got Alaa, Hathaleen. Alaa is a physiotherapist from Palestine, from Hebron, from Bethlehem. He's been in South Africa for the past 2 to 3 weeks. He holds 4 specialized certifications. I saw some dry needling in there, and I saw a lot of cool stuff that we need to come to you for. And he founded the 3rd Physiotherapy Center in Yatta. Yes. It opened in February 2023, but he had to close in October because all the entries to the city was closed. And he left Palestine recently after being targeted by Israeli settlers, and he is an activist for human rights in Palestine. So welcome. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Dr. Emma Keelan. Dr. Emma is both an acute medicine and respiratory consultant. Please just get me if I'm wrong. This is all from your profiles and from speaking to you. And she's from Northern Ireland, and she holds a master's degree in global health with distinction. She also has extensive experience in delivering healthcare through mobile clinics across Palestine, and is also a volunteer for Physicians for Human Rights and Palestinian Medical Relief Society. And your primary research interest focuses on resilience in conflict medicine and the impact of apartheid and occupational health access in Palestine, with a specific focus on gender. So amazing. And you can read about her work and Google her. There's lots of articles. And then lastly, we've got Professor Brendan Browne. Prof. Brendan Browne is a native of Belfast and an interdisciplinary scholar. So degrees in law and human rights, PhD in sociology, and also an award-winning teacher. He held academic and research position at the University of Belfast, Quds, and he's assistant professor of conflict resolution and a fellow of Trinity College, Dublin. He's been working in Palestine for 15 years, and his focus is on issues related to regional justice, liberal peace building, and forced displacement, both on violence troubles and most recently on transitional injustice and enforcing the peace on Palestine. And he was nominated for the 2023 Middle East Monitor Palestine Book Award. You can follow him on Twitter at Brendan Browne at www.brendancbrowne.com. All right. So thank you very much for being here. We really, really appreciate you doing this all at such short notice. So Alaa, start with you. Welcome to South Africa. Firstly, I know you haven't been here for very long. Okay, how have you been finding it so far?
Hi everyone. Nice to meet you all, Wallah, and see you here. I'm Hathaleen, 24 years old, from the South of Yatta community in the south of the Hebron occupied West Bank. Sometimes when the people tell me that you are activist, the activist in Palestine is not a choice really. And the first thing, our existence there is activist. But for me, it's not choice to be activist because my community facing a lot from the occupation, from everything we see from the occupation. I can see that I'm 24 years old. I didn't see freedom all my life. I didn't feel safe all my life. I'm arriving here in South Africa after like I become a target for the settlers because I'm activist in social media. I expose their crimes where they are, and مسافر يطلع a lot because it's very important thing. It's a very important issue now. That all the eyes is away from it. I choose South Africa. And I was sure that I will feel that because I feel that when I'm in Palestine, and I feel that now when I'm here and I see the work of the people and all of the people here like really Palestine, we see that and we really appreciate that and really appreciate what South Africa really do for us. And it's the first time since like 75 years that Israel is under the law and the occupation is under the law, and nobody can do that, just South Africa, and that's mean for us as a Palestinian a lot. And really, and I see like just South Africa now for us as a Palestinian, they are our brothers and sisters. And this is not something to say. This we feel it as a Palestinian. And I'm leaving my family, leaving my community. It's not choice. I cannot my family because I was afraid that the settlers will hear they reach any information that I'm leaving, and they will put many restrictions for me to leave Palestine. And it's not easy also to leave the West Bank in this situation, in this world, because really the situation is very hard, and you have to get. I had to get many checkpoints until I arrived to Jordan, and it's really very hard for me to leave my family, to leave my community. I'm here, and my hurts and my feeling all of it in Palestine. And when anybody here asks me how are you, I tell them Alhamdulillah, but I'm not good. And you cannot ask this question for any Palestinian really, because really we are not good, and really the freedom people also are not good. What's happening in Palestine now, to my people, to my community there, it's a genocide, ethnic cleansing, forced displacement everywhere in Palestine, and nobody take action to stop that. And because sometimes that's and they care for us. I mean, we see the occupation us sometimes as a human. And I'm really grateful for you because you are here and all the people who watch us and give us this time to talk and have us here. That's really it's mean for me a lot. And I promise myself when I'm leaving Palestine, I will continue to talk about Palestine. I will continue to share what's happening in Palestine because if I will stay in Palestine, I'm between two choices, killing or arresting. And I prefer the first, the kids to be murdered because I will die from the oppression inside their jails and inside the Israeli prisons. And you can see how much the suffering from these two choices. And I'm really not happy to leave. I'm okay because I'm leaving because I can continue to talk about Palestine and I will not stop talking about Palestine. Thank you, Samah, and thanks everyone here. Yeah, and I'm really happy because I'm seeing all these people here to hear from us.
Let's tell us a little bit about yourself, about how you grew up. I know it's a lot, but just sort of explain to us a little bit about what the things that you faced, maybe that you're willing to share and okay to share, and how you ended up having to leave, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, if I were to talk about my life, I need a lot of time, but I will try to talk as much as I can. I'm a child who grew up in the Safriyata community. My dream was to get the basic right for any human in the world. A home, electricity, water, the basic right to be educated guy. This was a dream for us, and it's still a dream until now. For all my community, all our children in Masafir Yatta. My community, Masafir Yatta, is a huge area, and it's area in Area C, according to Oslo Agreement. And that means it's area for the Palestinian people, but under Israel's security control and under Israel's control, controlled by Israel. And that means also they have to protect us as Israel's army and police. They have to protect us, and they should protect us from the settlers, from anything, according to the agreement. But we know since 75 years, Israel didn't commit any agreement happening with the Palestinian people. I grew up as a child. I wake days where I see the settlement near to me, just 2 meters, just 2 meters. And I grew up. I'm really surrounded four sides by the settlement. Three sides of the where I live is the settlement, and in front of me is the chicken farm, Israeli chicken farm. It's belongs to the settlement. And you can see if anyone one day he will come in my house in my village in Masafir Yatta. You can see like the chicken farm in front of us, and the settlement behind us, and the electricity lines and the waters going through our village to the chicken farm. But we as a human is not allowed to us to take electricity and the water. You know, Israel is trying a lot with my community to expel us from the land, and the first thing they offer us everything. Just imagine what you want. You want open check, write down what you want. You want Israeli nationality, American nationality, just like dream, and we'll like give you everything. And when we refused that, they started telling us we lead to suffering. I remember that my father, his name Sheikh Shoaib, he was the leader of the community, and they was offering him everything, and he refused all these things because it's our homeland. And actually, I'm refugees from 1948. I'm refugees from the 1948 from area called Tel Arad, and I came into Masafir Yatta, and we buy the land in Masafir Yatta, and we live in it. And my father told him, like, when he asked my father, what do you want to leave this area? He told him, like, I just want two things. The first thing, he told, oh, that's two things, a lot. And he told me, maybe there's something we can give it to you and you leave your land. And the first thing that he want to return back to 1948. And he tell him, Sheikh Shoaib, I remember him very well, this captain, he's Israel's captain. His name Yusuf Kadri, I remember him very well. He tell him, Sheikh Shoaib, I want to like expel the people from there. I don't want to let the people come back there. And he tell him, give me the other choice. He tell him, I will die. After I die, you can take it. And he tell my father, I will let you suffer all your life. No electricity, no water, no homes. Actually, I'm living in tents and caves. I'm coming from all my community living in tents and caves. And you can just imagine how they're living in tents and caves in this winter, in this cold winter in Palestine. And really, I remember very well when he said to my father, I will let you suffer a lot. And one of the things I remember my father replied to him, tell him one sentence. He catch his hand and they tell him, I am one hair of the Palestinian body. What happening to my people happening to me? And after that, this captain is leaving. And my house getting demolished more than 6 times. Even the tents and the caves, demolition 6 times. And the last thing, on May 2022, they declare our land as a military land and a firing zone. Just imagine this. I'm living 2 meters away from the settlement. This is a firing zone and military land, and this is not a firing zone. This is just a pretext to take the land. Just want to anything to take the land, and they declare it. And no one in my community, his house not get demolished before. No one. In my community, they demolition the small schools. Schools, they demolition. The healthcare clinic, they demolition it. I can say, like, as one who grew up in the West Bank, I spent half of my life in the checkpoint. I'm waiting at the checkpoint. Maybe the soldier mood is not good today and I have to wait 6-7 hours. That's something normal, and they used to live with these things. And I can tell you about checkpoint. One of the small stories, one of my father's wives, she gets birth in this checkpoint. That's happening a lot. And also, in the last 2 years, Israel is trying, okay, we declare it as a military land and these people don't want to leave, we will like put more pressure on them. We'll make their lives very difficult. We will let them leaving voluntary displacement. They want to leave. We cannot like bring a trucks and bulldozer and let them leaving. The international community will start saying, "What are you doing?" and something. No, we will use other ways. And the other ways was the most dangerous ways. Is the circular violence. Yeah, and violence, you cannot imagine how much it's really. Think that you cannot stop it, and there is nobody who can protect you from them. And the Israel army and the police should protect you from these settlers, but they didn't do that ever. They all the time just coming to protect the settlers and helping the settlers. Settlers, I can tell you like small things what they are doing for me as Alaa. The first thing, they are killing my uncle. They are running for 2 years exactly. They are running over one. My uncle, his name is Sheikh Sulaiman. He's one of the famous people in Palestine. He's a leader for us. And I once see him. He's the father of all the Palestinian people. And you can all of you Google about Sheikh Sulaiman and you will see how much he's a strong man. And he was very peaceful man. And the settler ran over him because he's trying to stop them to confiscate our cars. They are coming and they just want to confiscate everything. The settlers also. And everything can tell you that it's documented, and we have all the things that we have the videos, we have everything about that. One of the things, like they are burning the houses, they are stealing our sheep and the goat, and they're killing the sheep and the goat. They are arresting the donkeys. I have 4 donkeys arresting now in the Israel jail. And I asked Hamas to do agreement with them I want our donkeys, please. Maybe the donkeys is Hamas, I don't know. And also like they are arresting many people. Yani, 2 of my brothers now in the jail. I will think about them a lot every night, every day. I mean, they have kids, they have family, and they are in the jail, and we don't know why. The settlers also broken the lines of like the solar panels. We're using the solar panels to use it as electricity for us, but most of the time in Palestine it's not work, but they also broken it. The settlers were using the walls, the water walls. They put the petrol inside the water walls because they know we are drinking from this water and our sheep and our goat. They're burning our trees. These settlers enemy for everything, for the human, for the animals, for the plants, for the trees, for everything. Actually, since 7 October, it's before 7 October, before 7 October, but after 7 October, the intensity of the violence is really increasing, and we see that. And the settlers, are one of the people who like facing this a lot, and I am trying all because I want to document what they are doing. I want to document all the violations they are doing to all my community, because I want to let the people see what's going on in Palestine. As an activist, I'm not document because I want to let you see who's the wrong and who's the right. Because the Palestinian issue is the only issue that all the people know who's the oppression and who's the oppressed. It's known, but I document to let the people see how much these situations are brutal and criminal. And they don't, and they're trying a lot to prevent that. And you can see the Western media, and they are all the time trying to doing that. The Israel narrative, not the Palestinian story. Yeah, and that's all the time. But even they are fighting us in the social media, and they're closing many of our accounts. But we continue, and we continue to talk about Palestine and my community. I can tell you like one of the stories as a physical therapist. I work with. Also, I become a physiotherapist because it's not my choice. Because I see my father suffering from a stroke in 2013, and I see how much we are suffering to let him get a physical therapy sessions, and with the checkpoints and with the bad situation because we are far from the city, and there is no health clinic in my area. And from this moment, I decide to be a physical therapist, and I work hard. I'm as a Bedouin guy. I'm a children, and in the morning in my school, I have to walk more than 20 kilometers every day, and we are already facing the settlers' attack when we on our way to the school. And in the afternoon, I come back with our sheep and the goat because it's the only income for us. And in the night, I'm studying under the settlement light. And all my studies was under the settlement line because I don't want this situation to stop us. My father, maybe you will be shocked now. We are 18 brothers and sisters. But the most good thing, like most of us educated, because my father like support us to educate because he tell us we cannot continue with this struggle, with this occupation. You cannot stop them if we are not be able to be educated, and he is helping us a lot to be educated. Alhamdulillah, my family is very educated, and I'm proud for that. And I didn't know what else, but
Thank you for that. Thank you.
yeah,
That's very great. Thank you so much for that. I just wanted to ask you, so just specifically within healthcare as a physiotherapist, what's your experience been before October 7th versus after, just in terms of a healthcare worker? How would you describe it?
you know, as a physical therapist, before 7 October, all my stories, all the stories I will say it now, it's before 7 October. One of them, my uncle, I tell you that they are run over my uncle. And after they are running over my uncle, we calling the ambulance to come to pick him and to transfer him to hospital. After they are running over him, from here they are going directly to the entrance and they close the entrance. And they prevent the ambulance to enter. And we take my uncle with, and I don't know how to say it's like, with the wrong way to the hospital. If we have 100% that he will live, we lost it because there's no ambulance and there's no staff there. And this is one of the stories. And the other stories really hurt me a lot because he's my friend Harun. Harun El-Boraei, he's a guy like me. He have a dream and he was 24 years old. And he was building a house and he was getting engagement and he have a fiancé and he was very happy. He was planning to marry in summer and his wedding being in summer. In December 2020, the occupation coming and they destroying and demolishing his house. And I hope it's stop here, but it's not stop here because Harun he will continue planning to marry it in summer and he's starting to rebuild caves to marry in it. And he was using a generator to rebuild the place. And the army didn't like that, and they are coming and they're trying to confiscate the generator, and they're shooting Harun. And Harun living with quadriplegia and bed sores, and he stay like around 10 months in the hospital. His heart stopped 5 times. And Harun come back to live in Masafriyat again, in caves. Just imagine, like, with this quadriplegia, with all these bed sores around him, around all his body, like he come back to live in these caves. And Harun, I remember very well. I was the physical therapist for him. I go every day for him and meet him. I know as a physical therapist, I know I will not like help him a lot really, but I become with the days I become his brother really, and I become very close to him. And I was the only one he can tell me everything because you have a mother and sister and father living with him. And he told me, Alaa, I didn't sleep all the night. When I'm asleep, and then my night, he says, I see the soldiers who shooting me. Every night I saw him. Yeah, and his mother was suffering from many discs in her back, and she's suffering from also diabetes, blood pressure, and his father losing his work, and he had to sit down to take care about him. And really, Harun, just imagine, just in one month, he's losing everything. And Harun, yesterday was 1 year he passed. And yesterday, exactly 14 of February 2023, he passed. And I was very happy because he died. I'm sorry to say that, but because really he like comfort from all the suffering, all the pain, we feel it. Because Harun, with the days going, we have to the gargarinas like go around all his body, and we have to cut both of his knees, and after slowly, he's really. I'm sorry to say that, Harun, but it's he have a bad smell, and I'm trying all the time to help him. Even he have bad smell, and he told me, please, Alaa, stay away from me because I know I have bad smell and I will die soon. But please stay away. I don't want that, and I continue help him. until Harun, I remember Harun one time told me, Alaa, I can't forgive these soldiers who shooting me. I tell him, Harun, what are you saying? How will you forgive these soldiers? He telling me like, if he can come and continue what he started and kill me. Because really, Harun wasn't asleep. Harun was suffering a lot, and nobody looked at him. And we have document, we have a video that's proof that soldier shooting Harun without nothing. Harun didn't do nothing for him. But the Israel's court, like consider it as defense itself, like for the soldiers, and they refuse Harun case in the court. And this is not with Harun, also with my uncle Sulaiman, the same thing. And and as a physical therapist, I'm sorry, I founded my clinic in February and closed it in October. Just imagine. Because I wasn't able to reach my clinic in the city, and they prevent all us. Even it's for my clinic, I'm okay, not for it, because really I wasn't able to get food for my family. The people wasn't able to arrive to the city to bring food or everything, the normal thing for the life. And one of the night also, I put after 7 October, I put my mother and my nephew, he was suffering from a fever. And I put him in the car and I will transfer him to the hospital. And when I'm coming to the entrance, the army is stopping me and putting the gun in my head. I used to do that. They do that many times with me. I used to do that. Something normal. And tell me, if you didn't come back, we will shoot you. And I have to come back. And the next day they are coming and they confiscate my car. I remember when they working me with the weapons and they beating me with the weapons all around my body. And they tell me, give us the key. This car is not yours now. Just imagine that. I know someone do that for you. And this is something what I face as Alaa, as someone who's living in Masafriyatta, as someone who's living in West Bank. We see a lot of things like that. We got used to live with that. I didn't know. Sometimes when I didn't find a checkpoint in my way, I ask resident, please, we need a checkpoint. I get used to live with that. And please, I cannot live without a checkpoint. And that's something I'm very honest with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. It's time for lunch break, so we're going to break. I did have one question, but I think we'll ask you right at the end, so you can think about it so long. It's how would you describe it? So tell us a little bit more about your work in Palestine before the current conflict, for lack of a better word, and just your experience of the healthcare system before this point.
So in 2015, we moved to Palestine, we moved to Bethlehem, and my first point of entry was with Palestinian Medical Relief Society. I did clinics with them, so I would do sort of 3 clinics a week just as a volunteer. Those clinics were mainly around Bethlehem, and the PMRS are generally set up to do mobile clinics in different areas. So in around Hebron and around, you would have the same clinic go to the same areas and rotate around in different areas based on different days of the week. The clinics that struck me in around that area was, even with the clinics going to the same areas, we were setting up clinics in rooms and there was no guaranteed electricity, there was no guaranteed water, there was no sanitation even with those that were preparing for the clinic. And patients were getting 2 weeks supply of medications at a time, paying, up to sort of 20 shekels for this. And that was an awful lot of money to people. So at times people couldn't even afford the 20 shekels. And the team of the PMRS were trying to either use their own money to try and help patients pay for their medications, or find ways to then try and see if there was medications could be given for free. And as well as that, then it was the conditions that we were seeing, and it was the high blood pressures, the high cholesterols, the diabetes, which weren't able to be controlled because people weren't getting the access to the medications that they needed on a consistent basis. And then ultimately then patients were also presenting because they had the sort of more complications of these issues. They had heart attacks, or they talked about family members who had passed away because they had catastrophic heart attacks or catastrophic strokes, as you were saying, Alaa. So patients, don't have the preventative medications that they need, and that's what struck me with those clinics. Ultimately, I took a job working at the Al-Quds Medical School, was working there, so I couldn't do the clinic as consistently, and then took up a role with Physicians for Human Rights. And what was interesting about that is that those clinics move around the West Bank, and that gave me that you spoke about in terms of the settlers and the impact that they have on health, both the settlers themselves but also the settlements. So the clinics then that the Physicians for Human Rights would be involved in would be areas like Tuckereen, Jenin, Hebron, Nablus up in the north. And I suppose everybody has heard of, the issues around Jenin in terms of, what happened there last year. There was the Israeli invasion there. Up around Nablus as well have specific access with the settlers and the settlements, and the clinic I last did during my time there was in a village called Beta. It's the third time at least I've been to Beta, and it's surrounded by settlements on three sides, and as you say, with the road, then the checkpoint at the entrance of the village to be cut off. And the issues then that were coming are the patients that I was seeing. There was one lady that sticks in my head. She had 4 sons martyred and 2 who were in administrative detention. And she's prioritising, saving her money to try and, seek legal advice and things like that. So she's not prioritising paying for medications then for her health, because that doesn't mean anything to her. It's her sons that mean everything to her. A young boy was brought in because the settlers had attacked him whilst we were doing the clinic. So again, it was sort of first aid to his wounds. We set up, usually in schools, where we're pushing together tables and putting a blanket over them to then examine people on these hard surfaces. There's no pillow. You're wiping it down with alcohol gel. There's no privacy to the room at times. There's no curtains. You're trying to put paper, to try and cover and to give people some sense of privacy. And we set up the clinic and we just see whoever comes. And when patients come, if they know that we're coming, sometimes they get their bloods done somewhere down the road, because we don't actually have the ability to be able to check their, full blood picture or things whenever they're there. We can dip urine and we can check blood sugars and blood pressure and things like that. With patients, if they know we're coming, can get their blood checked earlier in the week, and we see an awful lot of patients with malnutrition and things like that, particularly in women, and then there's other conditions, there's sort of non-communicable diseases that we talked about.
And obviously the focus, at least media-wise and so on, has very much been on Gaza, understandably so. It's genocidal. What's happening there is catastrophic. What's been happening in the West Bank from what you're hearing? I don't know if you've been there at all, but what have you been hearing from colleagues in terms of healthcare and in terms of what's been happening in the West Bank?
There's no flights to go. I've been going from the 7th of October. So what I know is that there's been an increase in settler attacks, and actually the need for the mobile clinics is becoming more. Physicians for Human Rights also normally go into Gaza, and they would have a presence there. My colleague Alaa would organise a lot of groups into Gaza in terms of providing, medical doctors from other parts of the world in, but also Palestinian doctors in for specific operations and things like that. They've increased up the number of mobile clinics that they're doing now in the West Bank. But in terms of the patients, it very much seems to be the same, but there's a lot more caution around. There's been, I know from the 7th of October, you've had over 200 ambulances that have been attacked. You've probably had at least 200 attacks on healthcare in the West Bank since the 7th of October. But in comparison to the catastrophe that's happening in Gaza, we're not always hearing about these, or if we are, we're hearing about it alongside, but it's buried under the important message that is coming from Gaza. But the concern will also be, the fact that they are doing this in the West Bank, and they will continue to keep doing this in the West Bank.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think obviously all eyes on Gaza because of the catastrophe, but occupation and what's actually happening also in other territories. My next question is a bit academic.
Okay.
So, just in your experience, what do you think the impact of Israeli apartheid and occupation on Palestinians in terms of access to healthcare? And in terms of, you spoke a little bit about gender.
Yeah.
Does gender play a role? You don't have to deeply go into it, but what is your kind of, what do you think?
To take the gender part first,
Yeah.
you know, I think gender does play a role in what we say, and for that reason, I've been involved in the PHR clinics, particularly as well because women tend to put themselves at the back, and we have tried to, as part of the mobile clinics, also do women-only clinics. So they generally run once a month, and then we do 3 of those in a row going to the same place, just to be able to provide a little bit of consistency for women and to try and do some preventative medicine. Because for women in Palestine, one example would be in terms of breast care. So there are higher levels of sort of male doctors. It's not by any means because there's not females in medical school or anything like that, but just other things happen, and there's a higher propensity for males to continue on in terms of actually working as doctors. But there's about 6 times, you know, aren't aware of how to do a breast exam, and then whenever you have all of the concerns and everything that you have about your family all the time, and you put yourself to the back, these things don't take priority in terms of your health. So women in Palestine generally have higher rates of diagnosis of breast cancer at a much later stage, and therefore tend to be diagnosed with much more malignant breast cancer and have a 5-year mortality which exceeds significantly that of their counterparts, Israeli women, which is much more along like UK standards. So we do those clinics. The other thing as well is it gives women also an opportunity at these clinics, because we provide physiotherapy and we provide occupational therapy and things, that there are a lot of women, if their husbands have been put into administrative detention or killed, they take on a lot of roles outside the home as well, and a lot of women would generally come because they've taken on roles in a sense they go to labouring and things like that, and they have a lot of issues with pain, back pain, knee pain. So by doing the clinics and being able to provide them with a little bit of physio, it's a little bit of relief, and if it's a female on female interaction then, but there's also a sense of being able to freedom to speak and talk as well. There's a lot of, as you can imagine, collective trauma within Palestine, and we often put a westernized approach to PTSD. You can't be post anything if you're never through it. And there's so many people that continue to say PTSD, and the issues, it said, about the resilience in Palestine. It's a critique of resilience, which I have frustrates. We've written about this, both of us, this idea that Palestinians are resilient. Absolutely, unquestionably, at our core, there's a level of steadfastness, but the idea that we need to keep asking Palestinians to be resilient is incredibly problematic. And, things like aid, we should be dealing with the problem, which is the occupation, not expecting Palestinians to not have their health looked after, and to go to the issues with apartheid. And some of the things that you've noticed, if you don't have access to appropriate sanitation, you don't have access to clean water. A third of Palestinians suffer food insecurity, or you don't have the ability to kind of engage in appropriate health with this at this basic level. Then on top of that, you add in checkpoints. So if you're sick, how do you get to the nearest clinic, the nearest hospital? If that checkpoint is closed, as you said, Alaa, one of your family members had to give birth at a checkpoint. That happens all the time. Babies die at checkpoints. Women die at checkpoints because they're not allowed through. If you are then trying to get from a checkpoint then, because you're trying to access a hospital in Jerusalem, you have to get out of one ambulance into another ambulance to get healthcare facility in East Jerusalem. That can take up to an hour in terms of transferring you. If you're having a heart attack or a stroke, you've taken the ambulance from point A to point B, you get out of one ambulance, that takes an hour, it could be cold, it could be wet, then you get into the next ambulance and you transfer to the hospital. All these things, you lose out on time. And time is very, very critical, as we all know, in so many different aspects of healthcare. The situation, I'm just giving examples. The checkpoint is but one. You could have to go through 2 or 3 checkpoints. You have the separation wall. You go out and around and weave around. To go from Bethlehem to Ramallah should be what, 15k, yes. Something like that. Could take you an hour and a half. And these don't include the flying checkpoints. That there should be 2 checkpoints at that point, which are stationary. You can add on another 2 flying checkpoints. These are militarized spaces. You can be turned back. You can have a gun pointed to you. And females, gendered, can also be vulnerable in those areas, because you can be asked to remove your headscarf. You can be asked to remove your clothing. In terms of the trauma of those experiences as well. And this is for, physio students, medical students, nursing students trying to get to university for your education. You could have to do that several times a day as well. And the other thing even is just in terms of, the pharmaceutical company and how all of those things are designed to try and prevent access to medications for Palestinians. The Ministry of Health is set up, through the PA, and Israel is ultimately responsible as an occupying power. But through Oslo, these things weren't designed, and Palestine and Israel were put at the same level economically. But Palestine is not, economically at the same level. It's essentially, a lower economic status, and it should have been seen as that. And by connecting the 2 economies, it means that Palestine is beholden to Israel for all of its medications it's brought in. So it can't import from China or from India or from anywhere else. It has to import everything through Israel at a much higher cost. This is one of the pharmaceutical supergiants. And during COVID, then the distribution of vaccines from Israel was also unfair. Palestinians were not given access to COVID vaccines. They had COVID at higher rates. They had higher mortality from COVID. Whenever you had, Israel being one of the forefront leaders, actually designing vaccines that were being distributed around the world. So these are all ways that Israel will go to continuously, from the very base level of ensuring that health from the minute you don't have access to food and water and all these things, but then it's at the level of how do you transfer to medical, how do you get there, and then you can't get the medication, and then you don't get the vaccine. It's at every single level. It's essentially the word that sort of encompasses it is sort of necropolitics, the idea that you're the living dead, that you're not allowed to succeed and be healthy, that you're constantly held in the state of sort of ill health, and I think that's what they try and do. Sorry for that long-winded answer.
No, that's perfect, Emma. Thank you for that. That gives us a very good idea, because often, we say apartheid, but it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So there's so much to that. So thank you for painting that, especially the role of women and what women experience. Just the last question, just on this section. What's your experience of Palestinian people in general throughout the years? I know that's a very broad question, but there's so much just negativity and negative showing, like in terms of Western media, and what's the heart of Palestinians? Can you answer that?
All I had to say whenever you said that, I just was like the best. I feel like as somebody from Ireland, just your brothers and sisters. Whenever we go anywhere in Palestine, from the very first day that I ever turned up there, you're just completely subsumed in kindness. That's probably not the right word, but like just completely enveloped in kindness, and that's really it. That's at the heart of it. And whenever our friends came to visit us, they were, because family members and stuff came out, and everybody was just like, oh, that's your family, so they're our family, and it goes. And to see the negativity, it's heartbreaking, because that's not at all. And Palestinians aren't, and they're not violent, but there is a right to resist what has been placed upon you, and I think that's completely different. But the most loving, the most gracious, kindest, funny, quirky, just beautiful people.
Thank you so much. I think just a hand for Emma. She's really helpful. so much, Emma. We'll talk later, don't worry. Okay, on to you, Dr. Browne. You can swap.
All right.
Again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
So we've done the Palestinian experience, we've done medicine, and now into social justice.
So like Monday, yeah.
It's a great idea. What do we do? You've got all the answers, of course. So essentially, my question to you is, you're also a native of Belfast?
Yes.
Okay. And you're raised in a period of great violence and conflict, like Dairy Girls type of situation? Yeah. Okay. So how did your work start in Palestine? Because you know Emma followed you. So then how did you get started in Palestine?
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much for hosting this event. I think it's really, really critical that we do go out into our communities, into our spaces, wherever we are, to talk about Palestine, because we need to keep talking about Palestine all the time. It's absolutely critical. And I think I have been completely blown away by the South Africa Healthcare Workers for Palestine in terms of your organisation, your dedication. It's unbelievable. So big respect to that, and massive respect to Alaa for all your stories and for sharing everything. I've heard all them before, but thanks very much. It's always again. But no, it's really, really important. And yeah, I was born in Belfast. So Belfast, for anybody that isn't aware, Belfast is in the north of Ireland, which is, let's just say it's complicated. But I was born at a time when the Troubles, a period of time known as the Troubles, that we had basically a civil conflict, and I was born into that environment. So I saw firsthand what it looked like to live in a challenging space, let's say. But I also had the opportunity to be born and to grow up in a transition out of conflict. I think that's really important and really powerful. So yeah, and all those things have shaped what I've done. Anyway, so I go to Palestine. I'd love to tell you that it was because I was brought up on stories of Palestine and resistance and go and support. I'm not gonna lie, that didn't happen, right? I had a friend who went to Palestine as a volunteer. He was going over to teach English in a place called Jalazon, which is just on the outskirts of Ramallah. And he texted me, he was like, listen, you're into human rights stuff. Yeah, seriously. And he said, why don't you come over here and see, you're always talking about Ireland, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I said, yeah, all right, let's do it. So I literally flew from Belfast to somewhere in England, can't remember, north south there, to Lud, which is Tel Aviv. And then from Lud to Al-Quds, and then Quds to Ramallah to Jalazon in like 12 hours. So I went from Belfast, where I was, to sitting in Jalazon refugee camp in 12 hours, right? And I was sitting in the square, as you do. I mean, Palestine can be quite a gendered space as well, so all the lads were sitting in the square, and I was in with all the lads. Didn't speak a word about it, not a lot of English being spoken, and I was just being handed this phone, and this phone just had all these people who'd been killed in Jalazon and pictures. I was like, wow, that is an integration. Here we go. Okay. And those 14 days in Palestine that I had in 2009 with James fundamentally changed my life. I never looked back. That was it, because you can't unsee it. You know what I mean? You cannot leave Palestine and say, all right, yeah, that was cool. You just can't do it. It's negligent, right? So then all of a sudden that became it, and then I went home and I didn't stop talking about Palestine. And then for the last 15 years of my life, I've been dedicated towards working in and for Palestine. I don't like to say on Palestine, I like to say for, because we need to be careful that we're not being extractive. So that's what it's been. So it's and maybe just talk a little bit about that. I mean, that it's been various different projects. I currently work with the Bedouin community which is an incredible coincidence that we're having this conversation. I have a major project with the Bedouin community that live in the outskirts of Jerusalem, working with the Palestinian University. I've worked at the university, at Al-Quds University in Nowadays. I've worked on several other things, but yeah, so that's where I got to Palestine.
Perfect, thank you for that. So can you tell us a little bit about your research into settler colonialism, forced displacement in both Northern Ireland and Palestine? So I'm very interested in how, I mean, there's a lot of Irish support in general for Palestine. So, I mean, there's connection. And will you just explain a little bit about that and about your research?
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I mean, the reason the Irish understand Palestine, right, is because we've experienced violence. We've experienced violent colonialism, right? The British were next door, and they were doing their best to kick us out of the space, right? So we understand what it means to be second-class citizens. We understand what it means to have your language attacked, your culture attacked, your ability to vote, your ability to access the labour market, your ability to be an equal citizen. We understand that as Irish Catholic nationalist Republicans growing up in the north of Ireland. We understand that. So there's an almost natural empathy then, right, with other communities around the world, not just the Palestinians, but certainly the Palestinians in the context of this conversation, but in other spaces as well. We understand what it means to struggle and to, you know, civil rights and to resist and everything else. So there's a natural empathy there. In terms of my own, you know, understanding of forcible displacement, Ireland's history is about forcible displacement. It's about populations being expelled. It's about plantation. It's about people coming to Ireland, displacing the indigenous community and being, you know, implanted there as well. That's about settlement. Ireland was settled by the British, as we know. So that idea of forcible transfer is something that's always been very interesting to me. And also because my father was forcibly displaced in the 70s from his house. He was forcibly displaced, and you know the language you've used is he was an internally displaced person. So it's always been something that I'm very interested in. And then of course when you go to Palestine and you see forcible displacement happening around you all the time, you can't avoid it. It's there, you know, you see it all the time. And that's kind of what led me to become really interested in all the various ways that Palestinians are being kicked out of their land. Right? It's the catastrophic way that we see at this moment in time. That's that. Through complete destruction, right? That's catastrophic. That's happening. We know that's happening. But it's the silent erasure that's also happening in places like Sheikh Jarrah that sort of goes under the radar ever so slightly, unless the cameras are right on top of it. The settlers moving in with the help of the American government and everybody else. And then you have the other ways that erasure is happening across the West Bank when the settlement enterprise is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's all part of the same logic, which is erasure. This land must be ethnically cleansed for it doesn't belong to Palestinians. This is the Zionist project. I'm not saying that obviously, but that is the end goal here. That is why we need to keep talking about it so intentionally, so intently, and so continuously. And so those are the areas that I've been focused on for the last few months.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for explaining that. The difficult question. In your opinion, what needs to happen in both Israel and Palestine for there to be true liberated peace in the region for both Israelis and Palestinians? What are your thoughts on that? I did send you the questions beforehand.
I hate that question. You know, and it's I hate you for asking.
No, that's why I'm asking.
I think I'll premise it by saying this. One of the great tragedies of Palestine and Palestinian struggle is that everybody else has been talking about the Palestinian struggle on behalf of the Palestinians. Yeah. Right? It's always like, this is what's right for the Palestinians. This is what's wrong for the Palestinians. This is how the Palestinians must resist. This is what they're entitled to. This is what they should concede. This is what they should tell us. Right? It's always the way. It's always the case. Even from the beginning, it was like 1948. Here you go. This is what you're entitled to. This is what. So that's the great tragedy. And it was actually Richard Falk, who I believe is from this parish, right? Richard Falk's from here, isn't he? Yeah, in South Africa. Falk, famous lawyer from here. He is. We can fact check it, but it was actually him that said that. He said, we need to stop talking on behalf of the Palestinians, right? So it's up to Palestinians to decide what their future looks like. It's up to Palestinians. And when I say that, by the way, I mean every Palestinian. I mean every Palestinian globally, everywhere. The diaspora have as much right to have a conversation about what a future Palestine looks like as the person that lives in Ramallah, as the person that lives in Jenin, Nablus, Gaza, Masayaka, everywhere, right? It's important that we always remember that, because for too long that has been forgotten. We use the term in our collective activism, in our collective language here, from the river to the sea. And we do that very deliberately, right? It's because we feel that everybody who occupies that land, maybe don't say occupy, everybody that lives in that land has the right to live with dignity, has the right to be free from the oppression that these two guys have spoken about so eloquently up until this point. I'm not asking for anything more or anything less. It doesn't seem like such a radical demand, right? It's not that radical. And so I'm not going to talk about like high political negotiate. Come on, that people above my pay grade will figure that out. But I think even at the base level, Palestinians have the right to make that decision for themselves. And I hope we get to that. I hope we get to that conclusion.
You answered that beautifully. It was actually a trick question. So, so just in our context, we were very excited and hopeful about the ICJ hearings. Okay, it felt like it's something that we could do as South Africans, and we were surprised and very, very happy to, in such a strong way, and to present it at the ICJ hearing. Obviously, a lot of us are feeling. What was the point of that, actually? Because there was so much extreme violence post that. Just from your experience, do you think the ICJ ruling, how is it important, actually? What do you think? It's easy to be despondent and feel like, what was the point of that? So what are your comments on that?
I oscillate between pessimism, cynicism, positivity around this all the time, right? All the time. And in the book, the most recent book that I finished, I'm very critical of these interventions, because from the get-go, international law has been weaponized against the Palestinian people, right? We know that. International law has not been friends of the Palestinians, okay? We've had 3 major international legal interventions in recent times. We had the 2004 International Court of Justice case on the legality of the wall that carves up the West Bank. That was found in favor, by the way, of the Palestinian people. That didn't stop construction of the wall. The wall got bigger, right? So there's that. Then we had the Goldstone report, which was, again, scathing of the occupation, scathing of the Israeli state. Again, it didn't really stop anything. And now we've had this extremely powerful, let me say first off, extremely powerful, methodical, diligent, expertly delivered case by the South African team, which was just a masterclass in legal work. I'm sure you all watched it. I watched it in my favorite coffee shop down the road. And it brought me to tears. It was sitting, just listening to the devastation being read out, all the ways that violations were happening. It's just unbelievable. And you had the top guys. You'd your top team. John Duggar, the 85-year-old man or 86-year-old man, standing there ripping them apart. Whoa, that was insane. And even more beautiful was watching Malcolm Shaw shuffle his papers and get off. What a pathetic attempt that was at a rebuttal. That guy got £1 million in his pocket for it. Can you believe that guy got £1 million? Anyway, I digress. So on the one hand, we have these legal interventions that have done what we see to be very little in terms of pursuing liberation, anti-Zionist liberation, an anti-Zionist reality from the river to the sea. We're going to use our language correct. But on the other side, here's the positivity. What the ICJ, I think, has done has provided a language around genocidal intent that we as a community of activists, right, as a committed community who are going to hold our governments to account, our institutions to account, our commercial areas to account. We can now go back and we can say, hold on a second. You want to still be involved with this government that's been accused of genocidal intent at the International Court of Justice? Is that a good look for you? So we have the language now all of a sudden, right, enshrined at the ICJ. And I think that's very powerful. And I think that's something we got to use. We should not snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here. I think that's critical. Do I think that the ICJ is going to lead to the liberated from the river to the sea Palestine? No. We've seen it won't. Do I think it has provided us with another tool, another layer in our arsenal to do what we can do as a body of activists? Yes, I do. Look up the work of people like Noura Erakat, a Palestinian lawyer in America who has written a book called Justice for Some, and it highlights all the ways that we need to highlight how the law is a political being, it's a political thing, and we need to figure out ways of pivoting that type of legal intervention in service of liberation.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I think you've given us lots to think about, because I think many comments after the ICJ was like, but they didn't say ceasefire now. And like kind of just forget everything else that's been said. So I think that helps us figure out how to use and continue the conversation, continue the activism around it. Okay, my last question for you. So I was going to ask you the similar, like, what is your experience of Palestinian people throughout the years, but also like, what about in activist spaces? So what is your experience of Palestinian activism, Palestinian resistance, Palestinian, what is your experience? What have you come across?
Okay.
As an outsider? Do you realize that?
So just to clarify, my experience of Palestinian resistance or my experience of Palestinian activism abroad or in Palestine or where?
In Palestine first, and then you give it a great layer abroad as well.
Okay. I mean, Palestinian activism is super energized. It's very well organized. It's impressive. I mean, I'll take you into my classroom, for example. 2015, I was teaching a course called, I can't even remember, Transitional Justice, probably. I can't even remember, but I remember sitting in the classroom. It was human rights or something. I was sitting there and I was going through the repertoire. Oh, we're going to learn about this today, or truth recovery. We're going to learn about this. We're going to learn about this, international law. And a couple of my students just looked at me and went, what are we even talking about this for? This is a complete waste of time. This is what we need to be talking about. This is how we need to do it. So people in my classroom were super energized and super organized at that time. So I think the activist network on the ground in Palestine is very strong. I also think they're fighting multiple battles. They're fighting the Zionist regime. They're fighting global opinion. They're fighting the PA, who are doing their best to suppress the Palestinian resistance on the ground as well. We gotta say that. We gotta say there needs to be a liberation from the PA as well, and that has to be considered as well. So they're fighting on multiple fronts at all times. That takes incredible strength and bravery. And remember as well, the Palestinian people have been unceremoniously fragmented, so they gotta find ways of being in communication with each other all the time. It's bloody hard work, you know. So fair play to them. Coming externally, I think the global moment that we're experiencing now in terms of the activist solidarity communities around the world is really, really important and really impressive. We wouldn't be sitting in this room if it wasn't for the fact that we have a global awakening around Palestinian solidarity. That's beautiful, and we need to really not rest on our laurels. We've got work to do, but certainly say we're not going to lose this moment. The energy is in this room. The energy is in this moment. And in Ireland, of course, I can reflect on that a little bit. We've seen this massive explosion of people having an awakening around Palestine. Massive. People that would not have been political before, you know, are now finding their voice and saying, hold on, you just can't kill the way you're killing. This is insane. You know, the chatter in coffee shops is about Palestine. We have new groups being formed all the time. So that's great, and that's really important. But we need to keep going, because you know what? It shouldn't have taken what happened post October the 7th to have awakened everybody's mind about what's happening in Palestine. This is 110 days and 75 years, right? And so it should have been something that was on everybody's mind all the time. We should have been thinking about Why are we not more intentionally talking about this? Why are we not doing more to hold our institutions to account? So I think we have work to do. I hope as activists we continue the struggle. I hope that whenever we feel that we're tired or that the energy wanes, I hope we gather our energies again and go again, because I do think very, very seriously we're standing on a moment in history here and we're grabbing it. And I think it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Liberation of Palestine is absolutely inevitable. Settler colonialism always gets more and more and more and more violent as it reaches its peak. So let's keep the faith, and that's where we need to go.
Thank you so much. You made it through. Oh, guys, thank you so much. I think let's just give a hand. In our last 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to do the general discussion panel and take some questions. If you could also check online if there's any questions on Insta. For our live stream audience, this is your time to type in those questions. So let me put a question out to all three of you. Well, actually, first, Alaa, we had your question that we never got to initially, which is, how would you describe the Palestinian people from within, not as an outsider, and what are your hopes and dreams for your country? I didn't forget about this question.
You know, if I say good things about the Palestinian people, because I'm Palestinian, I have to say that about my people. And sure, I will not say bad things about them. But really, as a Palestinian, and how I see my people, I didn't meet any strong people like my people. And I believe that. And I believe that the God chose us for this issue. And because He really trusts us to continue steadfast in our land. And our children also all the time. Now I'm fighting not because me, but because I'm start getting old. I'm really fighting because I want a good life for our children, for all my people, for my community. You know, in Palestine, there's no place like Palestine. And these two people was there in Palestine, and they love it. And you see how much good things they say about the Palestinian people. And I cannot say anything more than what they say. But I'm all the time looking at my dream. It's a dream, but I hope it will be. And I all the time tell all the people that you don't have to be a Muslim or Arabic to support Palestine. Just be a human. This is because Israel is all the time trying to take the Palestinian issue to the religion issue. It's because it's easy for them to say it's anti-Semitism and Holocaust. It's easy for them to say that, but it's not like a religion issue. It's a humanity issue. And all the time I say it's inevitable that the wall of the apartheid will collapse under the tide of the justice. And it's inevitable that the songs of the freedom will ring from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And it's inevitable that Palestine will be free. And you must be in the right side of the history. That's all the time I say that. And I hope the people continue fighting for the justice of all the Palestinian people because they deserve it. Really, they deserve it. I know my people very well. And know them very well. You cannot imagine how they are very good people. So kind people, so lovely people, so welcoming people. And I hope you visit us in Palestine one day, any one of you, and you will see that. And I would like, really, to help all the people in Palestine, because really we have a big heart, and we really appreciate everyone support us, even it's small things with just saying free Palestine. Wallah, we appreciate that, and we really want the world to be more awareness about what's going on in Palestine. It's not just 7 October, please. I hate when anybody says 7 October. I hate when anybody say conflict or struggle or it's occupation, it's genocide. It's really occupation, and this occupation has to end because we really deserve freedom. We deserve to feel safety. You know, I'm arriving one moment. If I feel safe, I worry about that because something will happen. Until now, really, I feel that I'm not in good mentality. Yeah, if the doors knock now, I would be afraid there's a night raids or settlers or other soldiers.
يعني until now يعني some people like be shy when they're asking or you tell them go to the psychology, but I'm not shy. I need that. I need that. يعني I'm new starting feel like I'm recovery and I'm starting to be awareness that there's a freedom in the world. There's a safety in the world. And please keep fighting for Palestine, for the justice of Palestine. Please. يعني all the time I tell them, my people, you don't have to ask anyone. Because you are the Palestinian people, the people should come to support you. You don't have to ask them to come to support us. But now I'm asking the people to continue talking about Palestine, especially the activists. The activists around the world now, it's really great. And we really appreciate that. And we hope that we will continue until the freedom of Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I'm going to open up the floor a little bit. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? You're welcome to. Perhaps Samah, would you, or you can speak loudly.
I was for the first intifada in '86. I was with the US, and the TV shows on that time was very pro-Palestinian, I thought. I was on the telephone, talking on the telephone with my father, and lots of the news that I saw wasn't shown in South Africa. Like a repeated breaking of bones of kids by the soldiers. Minister saying shoot him in the heart. Repeatedly shown on American TV. That was on CNN. And of course things have changed quite a lot since then. But then there's been a reactive shift within Israel, the population moving towards the Labour government. And since then, about turn of the century, there's been a rightward shift. Can you comment on that? I mean, why the very strong rightward shift in Israel since the turn of the century?
Okay. It's for me.
It's on your website.
Oh, that is really government. I mean, I would probably say even the left wing is pretty center right. You know, I'll start from that basic, premise on this. And I think Netanyahu is a big part of the problem. I mean, he's completely emboldened the settler community in a way that everybody warned was going to be a problem. I mean, if you look at who he has put in his government, we all know this guy Ben Gvir is a complete lunatic. Smotrich is a literal, he's been charged, he's done time, whatever else, terrorism offensive. So he's populated his government like that. But obviously that doesn't, account for the change over time. I fully appreciate that. And I just think this society has been completely emboldened by that. I'm not an expert on Israeli society and political society or whatever else. But I just think that's a major reason as to why we're at where we're at this moment in time. I think that's critical. I'm just going to pick up a point about the media. I think that was an important point you raised as well. None of that's going into the American media at the moment. They're getting very sanitized version of what's happening. And the rationale for that, of course, is their government's paying for this. They're the ones funding this genocide. So, and that just, I think, highlights again the role of social media in all of this, and the brilliant activists like Alaa who are doing this, capturing on the ground this content, and that's really hard, heavy work that we deserve, to heap praise on them for. So, the other point we make about Israeli internal society. I mean, there were people, remember, pre-7th October, there were thousands of people on the streets in Tel Aviv, thousands, protesting against Israeli democracy being dead, They weren't protesting against the occupation. They weren't protesting against the fact that their army was killing Palestinians wanton and recklessly across the West Bank. They weren't protesting against the siege on Gaza. They weren't protesting about every other issue internally in 48. So I think that's something as well that just gives you a good indication as to the way Israeli society has been for the last few months.
They protest because they want democracy occupation. This is their protest because that
they need they're asking for democracy occupation. They want to put Netanyahu in the jail and because they want to change the law. And now the war in Gaza and all Palestine is not a war because they defend themselves or 7th October or anything from that. The war now because Netanyahu plays. Yeah, when we see like people like these people, they are trying a lot to changing the Israel's law because the Netanyahu, if the war tomorrow is in, he directly going to the jail because we know how many problems he has with the Israel's community. And if you hear anything about this protest in Israel community, it's not against the occupation, it's not against anything. They are just want democracy occupation. I all the time laughing with them. I tell them, oh, you want a democracy occupation. That's it. Yeah.
Thanks for that, guys. Any other questions? Oh, I see there's a question in Instagram.
Sheena Alam, shukran for the comment, is hello from Belfast. In your experience, what has been the best way to bring attention to the Palestinian cause, to involve people who have never paid attention to politics or world affairs before? I think it's an open question.
Would you like to take it?
You know, you see, from the beginning, I didn't talk about the political things because it's, we follow hypocrisy from the Western world and from all the world about the political things and the political games. But the attention is just if you want to be in Palestine and we to just start looking. Now we are following the Google and the social media about Palestine. Just start looking about that and hear from the activists. Or like you didn't know anything about that, just be a human and just look for the humanity things and look for the people is living, how is the people living. Yeah, if I talk about myself a lot and there's many things I didn't say it, but you know, as anyone who wants to come to Palestine or like you is not political, you don't have to be political. You don't have never you have to, you don't need to be political to support Palestine or to look for Palestine. Yeah, I like that some people who are coming to me, they are in the middle, not with this and not with this. And they tell him that's perfect because you can see with your eyes. You can choose. Yeah, you can choose all the time. I like the people who tell me, okay, we didn't know anything about the conflict. I tell them you can come here and see and go here and see, hear from the two sides. Because this is the right thing and you will see and you will discover everything by yourself. Because that's, you don't have to be political to look for Palestine or to support Palestine or something like that. No, just you have to be a human. And there's, I think, now enough in the social media and the Googles about Palestine. You can start now with everything between our hands, not like in the past. We know that most of the Western media is like, they just like they just let the people like provide the Israel's narrative, not the Palestinian side. Yeah. Because of that, that's something strange and that will let you looking for what's the other side. We just hearing from this side. We have to hear from the other side. It's something easy and simple about how to be looking for Palestine and take attention for Palestine from this way. This is my idea.
Can I add something to that? I think a lot of people, whenever I get this question a lot, in work and people don't always kind of know how to engage with it. But there's a lot of simple things, there's 20-minute podcasts, there's Let's Talk Palestine, which is a great podcast, and it takes a lot of the different issues from 1948 in discussion format by Palestinians who then go through. Because when you're listing off books and things like that, I think the idea of reading an academic book, which is not always, I find them a bit overwhelming. I have read yours, but they can be a bit overwhelming in these like bite-sized chunks. Or, if you find the people that write the books, like somebody like Nora Erkat, and then you go on to YouTube, and then you can find the clips and following all these people on social media. But social media is a really great asset. Other things that I recommend people to do is, even if you just want to find out a little bit more about kind of Palestinian society in general, there's a lot of incredible Palestinian fiction out there. Like it dates back from 1948 kind of up until like present day, and you can read that. That's a way of like engaging and learning in a way that it's an audio book, it's you know, it's fiction, but people need to know more about kind of, I think, society and life as well. And these are ways that you can engage, but also turn up to the marches and listen to the different speakers. But I think the key point is, and maybe I'm when I get in trouble with this, but it's on people to be responsible to educate themselves. You can't just rely on Palestinians to educate us. They have a big enough job to be doing. Everybody can't be going to you and be like, tell me. That is exhausting. So people do have to take on responsibility and seek out some of these things themselves and engage with it. And the stuff is there. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
One little again, I think that's really important. One of the things I took away from Saturday's march here, or Saturday's, it wasn't a march, Saturday's event, was linking it to issues in South Africa as well. I thought that was incredibly powerful. You know, bringing issues around Palestine and showing how these are all interconnected issues that we need to be considering as well on our doorstep. I thought that was brilliant. So yeah, that's just an add-on to that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that. Any other questions up here on Insta? Any other questions from the audience? Yes. I think for the purposes of we might have to speak through the mic.
First, I want to say thank you to all of you for sharing your insights and the time with us. My question is for Dr. Keelan. As a healthcare organization who's trying to raise awareness and solidarity for the Palestinian people, I think we probably would really value your opinion in on what form our activism should take. What issues should we be focusing our efforts on?
That's an interesting question, because I run the Healthcare Workers for Palestine in the north of Ireland, and I still frequently spend significant time trying to like double check everything or have a second pair of ears with your shadow Brendan. And I think the piece of advice that you give me, which I try to stick to, is about kind of sticking to things that pertain to health, because it's important then, with that being the expertise, to use the voice in that. And I find that the Healthcare Workers for Palestine, the global group that we're all a part of, I have found from the first day that I interacted with them that their language is really on point. You know, they don't shy away from, and they don't try in all sides approach it. It's occupation, it's genocide, it's apartheid, and it's about using the correct language, but I think using it in relation to health. We, as healthcare workers, I'm speaking for myself, I don't know enough about the ICJ, about law, about, you know, at times, you know, the full political ramifications from 1948 to now, and I have been and done healthcare, so I think it's about where we see attacks on all the different ways that healthcare is being attacked, that we can make those, we can highlight those perhaps more, and we can link it to apartheid. And medical apartheid in and of itself isn't a framework, and perhaps we can start using that. It's used more in terms of issues with health in America for Black communities, but we aren't using it in relation to Palestine. There's only one article that has looked at that, and that pertains to kind of visa permits and things in Gaza. So if we come together and start using a narrative and keep with, as a group, collectively all using the same narratives and using the appropriate language, I think that's what we should be doing.
I think we've got another question over there. Can I pass you the mic just for socials? Is that right? You can stand.
Hi, good evening. I'm from Headlines, South Africa. I'm a journalist. I'm also an activist. I was just media, just lifestyle media, but I think if you're a human being, you see what's happening and you can't help but trying to support human rights. I get not a question, but I get people saying this all the time. So now I want whoever's watching and whoever's here to hear from a Palestinian to the people that say marching, protesting is useless. What do you have to say to the people that say all the activists here tonight around the universe that marching and protesting is useless? I want you to just say how you feel about that.
Not to put you on the spot.
You know, the first thing of the march and the protest for us as a Palestinian, we feel that. We see that. We like that. We appreciate that. And you know, it's not like just a march and a protest. The march and protest is the first thing. You can change everything. I see like the BDS movement, they do something like for some of the companies who support Israel. This is coming, all of them starting from the march and the protest, and we see how many the companies listen many things about that. And the second thing, I have a friend from US, and he told me if you're looking to the US now, more of the new generation, especially under 30, all of them support Palestine because the last generation was brainwashed when we see that. And I'm sure anyone see protest or the march around the world, he will go ask what this process for, what this is for Palestine. He will go research, he will go to look. And other things happening, I think, with here in South Africa. So my daughter, one of the day, she told me, I think in these few days, she was in the school, and one of the teachers talking about the genocide, and she's up until like what's happening in Gaza. This is very good from from her family, from the protest, from the march, and this protest and the march, I'm sure. It's make like really a pressure for the government, and we see exactly. I like that in US now, in Chicago now asking for like ceasefire. Many states in United now asking for ceasefire. Why? Because many of the people not come back from the road all the time in the march and the protest. Because that I think is not helpless, it's not useless. It's really very important, and it's like it's showing all the way all the world that there's a freedom people looking for the freedom for other people, and we sharing them their suffering, and we sharing them everything, and we are with them. Even it's just something, a feeling, not like something in the ground. We feel it as a Palestinian, really we feel it. And one of the things that let me come to South Africa because I see many big marches here, many things. And I feel as a Palestinian, it will be safe for me to be here. There's a big community support Palestine. That's a lot of things the march and protest can do it. And I hope the people can continue with that. I hope like the community of US now, most of them under 30 years, all of them support, not say all of them, most of them support Palestine. Why? Especially because the protest and the march and the social media and things like that. We cannot all the time say that the social media did not do nothing. No, we cannot do that. We cannot say that because the social media is doing everything now. The protest is doing everything. We see the march in London, it's around 1 million. And Ireland, every day there's a march, every day, and in South Africa, everywhere. There's more people now be awareness about what's going on. Because in the past there's no media. The media just for Israel narrative, not for the Palestinian narrative. But all these people, I think these freedom people, and they're everyone. I'm all the time really. I'm sorry to say that, but as an Arab, I see it's not dictatorial leaders there in the Arab countries. The people is not allowed to raise the Palestinian flag in their countries. But I see the women inside the Western world. Now we know the Western government is very hypocrisy, and all of them going with Israel like that. But I all the time ask the Arab about them because looking to the women in the Western, they are all the time in the road and they didn't want to come back to their homes because they're asking for the ceasefire, and you are not doing nothing. Because of that, and I think it's really not helpless, not useless. It's really important, and hope all will continue with that because really it's very important.
Thank you so much for that. We're reaching pretty much the end. So my question at the end was going to be, what can we do as South African professionals and global citizens going forward? I think you guys have answered a lot of that. Like continue our activism, continue speaking about Palestine, continue marches, protests, and just continue building on each other's work. Do you have any final comments on that, or anything you'd like to share with us in the last, as we end our program? I mean, everyone's going to get a chance. So.
No, I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. Actually, I think we just got to keep going. We've got to normalize the conversation a little bit, you know, and not allow Palestine to be a stigma. Yeah. It's not a stigma. This is something that we need to keep talking about. And we need to find these global connections as much as possible and keep these conversations going. I think in this digitized world, we can do that a lot easier now. After our great Zoom awakening of 2020, we can do these events. You know, we can do these events pretty quickly, and we should celebrate our successes from the top of our voices. You know, that's very, very important. So I know I take a lot of energy out of this room tonight, and I appreciate you hosting the event. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you for having me.
I don't really have anything else. I suppose just a final comment about the marches. The one thing that I would say about keeping going is it also publicly embarrasses our politicians. Like in Ireland and the UK, when we all stand there and they're against everything else and they're against the people, it's embarrassing, and it leads them to have to explain themselves. And we have had some politicians, you know, in Ireland who have stood alongside at the marches, and you know, it does help build momentum. And a lot of those you said as well, like I don't know what generation they're, Z, TikTok, whatever, but younger than me, have really, you know, they are the future, and they're the ones that are asking more questions and educating each other. And to the event that we were at on Saturday here, it was amazing. Two young women in particular stood up. One, I think she said she was 7 years old, Zara, perhaps, and she was selling pieces of watermelon, and she raised so much money in aid of Palestine. And then there was another 17, 18-year-old girl who wants to be a journalist, and she was standing up and talking about how she was wanting to educate people about what she had learned on Palestine. And these are now two new activists that are going out into the world at the age of 7 and 17, so many years younger than, you know, I started or you started or some of us in this room. And I think that's incredibly important to encourage, and that's why these events are important and why the marches are important, because if they're at a march and they're asking questions and they go into school and they tell somebody else in the schoolyard, for me, that's why you keep going and you encourage them. And the event tonight, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. And it's been really humbling to hear all your experiences, Alaa, and just to be in the room with everybody. And Samah, thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you all for thank you all for everything, and I really thank all the people who's organized this event, and we hope they continue with that everywhere, not just here in South Africa. We have to continue to do that everywhere, and not just for health workers, for everything, for education, and for everything in Palestine, because everything in Palestine we really suffer from it. Because of that, I hope they continue, and thank you for this event, really, and keep talking about Palestine.
Okay, we've reached the end of our program. I hope you have feeling a little positive. I hope we're feeling a little bit inspired. I know I am. Please stay and eat something and have some coffee and maybe some sugar, and please socialize with us. And thank you so much. And I think, just to say a thank you. First, I love you, but I can't do a one-handed situation. So we just want to say a huge thank you for you guys for being here. And we really, 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 really appreciate and understand how difficult it is to sit even in a room like this and speak. So we really, really appreciate you taking the time and taking the energy and to be here with us and to share with us. And you really didn't have to, and you did. So thank you so much. And then thank you so much as well to the host of this lovely